change behavior, you'll change thoughts and feelings. There's something about human beings where we will fight that, we will resist that, we will struggle with that. Certain thoughts will make it so hard to make the behavior change. What ACT says is there are strategies we can use to really decrease the influence and the pressure of thoughts and emotions. ACT is like exercise after exercise after exercise of how to not listen to your internal experiences, how to not get pushed around by thoughts.
Because a lot of people, and I know you've heard this too, say a successful treatment outcome would be, I'll never have this thought again, which of course is nothing we're working toward, right?
We're helping the client learn a set of skills that when they have a thought or they're having an emotion, that they can notice it for what it is, right? Like a thought are just words in our head. We have words in our head all day long. And if I can notice what I care about, then it's like, well, while I'm having thoughts and feelings, I can still pick what I want to do based on my values, and then that's the behavioral commitments. And if you're a listener and you're like, wait, so you just ignore all thoughts and feelings, it's more like you get to choose what to bond with.
You've probably heard of OCD, but I bet you don't really know that it's a condition that impacts 1 in 40 adults in the United States. Obsessive compulsive disorder is more than about just cleaning and organization. It causes intrusive, persistent, sticky feelings and thoughts and images that can seize on any topic, from romantic relationships to illness to spirituality, and really anything that matters to you. Now, this can cause significant anxiety and guilt and shame and disgust and whatever uncomfortable emotion it may grab onto, and it may make it hard to function in day-to-day life. If this sounds familiar, know that you're not alone and help is available. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist with 25 years of OCD treatment experience, so I know how scary these symptoms can be, but I also know that they can be managed with the right type of treatment. This is why I lead a team of top-tier clinical experts at NOCD. NOCD is an online platform offering specialized, accessible, and convenient OCD treatment. My team and I have helped people take back their lives from OCD through specialized therapy that's covered by insurance. To learn more about OCD and effective treatment, head to nocd.com. That's NOCD.com. You deserve to live the life that you want to live, and not the life that OCD wants you to live. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay up to date on our latest podcasts and webinars. Now, on to today's episode. Hi, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of the Get to Know OCD podcast. We are coming you today with a good friend of mine, Michael Twohig. Mike, how are you?
I am very good. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. And it's always a joy to bring friends onto the podcast to discuss various things that relate to OCD and exposure and response prevention therapy. And specifically, we wanted you here today because of your discussions and your work in the world of ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. And I remember our meeting, sort of meeting, when you had a panel at the Association for Behavioral and Cognitive Therapy, and you were talking about ACT to a panel of ERP specialists. And I remember after your explanation of ACT, which I enjoyed, I raised my hand, you called on me and said, I'm so thrilled to know I do ACT therapy.
that panel was, I was in my final year of graduate school, and I was doing ACT and OCD work, and so I was an ACT person, not an OCD person. Yeah. And I was like, this will be cool. We'll all go talk about our work in OCD. And I didn't realize I was stepping into a world where like people had been doing their work for many, many years. And this new grad student with a new idea, it took a while to sink in.
But look at all of us. We're all friends now. So that's really great.
Yeah. Everyone on the panel I am friends with. And I'll be honest, I think I have done an ACT project with at least 2 of the 5 panelists, if not more.
Right.
So like over time we've done projects together.
Yes.
And, like I learned about their work, they learned about my work, and the world is different.
And I'm good friends with Brett Deacon. He's very into ACT these days and the work that's going on. So yes, absolutely. It was very influential upon everyone. But for those who aren't familiar with ACT, tell us your background in it. You worked with Stephen Hayes, I know, who was the founder of this. Mm-hmm. And so let's hear a little bit about you first before we get into it.
So I'll try to keep it tight enough not to bore people. So it started out that I was working in what we now call body focused repetitive behaviors. So skin picking, hair pulling, nail biting. I was working in that area and we were doing basic behavioral work, and the clients were having a hard time following through with it. Like I could show them what to
Mhm.
do. And it's just like, I hear you, but I have a lot of emotional pressure. I have a lot of thoughts about it. Like, what do I do with that? And I remember going to my advisor at the time, Doug Woods, and I said, Doug, what do we do with this part? Like, I'm in a behavior analysis program at the time, so it's kind of like, here's what we want you to do. You should just follow through with it. And he said, it'd be really nice if you understood ACT. And interestingly, I always liked Steve Hayes because he's a pretty good philosopher. I don't know if you know that background of him. And I'd always loved that writing. So I flew out to Reno when I was getting my master's, learned how to do ACT, and then did the first ACT with habit reversal for trichotillomania, which is now probably one of the most supported treatments for the treatment of trichotillomania. And because I had done that work and ACT was just coming out, like I think this was like the 6th study on ACT ever, that when I applied to work with Steve, the developer, here's a kid who's already trying to do this work. So it was kind of an easy in. And then I spent 4 years with him where I did ACT for OCD, because actually anxiety is his favorite area.
Sure.
So that was kind of an easy, he was pretty excited to do it. And to me, that was kind of like the logical step. If I was doing trick, like what would be the next logical area?
Of course.
Yeah. And then I did spend 1 year with Maureen Whittle, where I did some cognitive therapy work. Jack Rackman was one of my supervisors, and I did traditional cognitive work, and that was a good growth year for me.
So Rackman, Whittle, lots of no-name people in the field. You're telling us that you've worked with.
I don't know what I'm doing. That's
yes,
right.
I mean, you've worked with some of the greatest, Doug Woods and Steve. I mean, it's just your litany's amazing.
Everyone was so awesome.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So you learned ACT, and what was it about ACT that you felt added to the behavioral work that you were doing?
Okay, so again, like if you picture my background as a behavior analyst, like the idea is we should be able to change contingencies in the world and shape up the behavior that the person's looking for. And the idea is that thoughts and cognitions and emotions should just come along for the ride. Like they should adjust as the behavior adjusts. Like that's kind of a basic principle. Like change behavior, you'll change thoughts and feelings. And I do, like at a philosophical level, I still think that's true. But there's something about human beings where we will fight that, we will resist that, we will struggle with that. Certain thoughts will make it so hard to make the behavior change.
Yeah.
And then what ACT says is there are strategies we can use to really decrease the influence and the pressure of thoughts and emotions. And if you can decrease that pressure, then you can shift it over to this thing we call values, which is like, these are the things I want to do in life. And so we have sort of a method to enrich that. So we decrease the pressure of thoughts and feelings, help the person connect with what they want to do in life. And then it just makes the traditional behavior procedures easier to implement, easier for the person to follow. So as a behaviorist, I'm like, oh, it's cool. I can keep doing what I've always done. But I now have a strategy to kind of get thoughts and feelings, more out of the way, if that's a fair way to say it.
And ACT really brings in a lot of conceptual ideas, the leaves on the stream, the exercises, the way that they look at these thoughts. Can you describe some of the things that it adds on to more of the behavioral focused work that?
Yeah. So I could say his name. I don't think he'd mind at all. Well, okay. I was doing a project with John Abramowitz, not trying to continue to name drop.
Oh, sure. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. But he said something that kind of, I thought this was a nice way to describe a part of ACT. He said a lot of your procedures enhance response prevention. So if response prevention and exposure with response prevention is, I want you to not do the compulsion when put in a really difficult situation. And like I went and did traditional behavioral work, and it was like, now we want you to not do the compulsion. So we want you to go home and make it through these difficult situations and not do the compulsion. Well, ACT is like, you can't see my bookshelves over there. It's like exercise after exercise after exercise of how to not listen to your internal experiences.
Yeah.
How to not get pushed around by thoughts. So an example might be like a simple one I might say to a client is, like if you think of your internal experiences like the weather, like it's not your job to fight it, it's your job to just sort of make it through that weather, right? If it's drizzly, make it through the drizzle. If it's a little cold out, make it through the cold. If it's a little warm, deal with the warmth. Like, and I might say you do that every day, but if you practice doing it with your own thoughts and feelings, and it's like those little lines give someone like a strategy of how to not listen to their thoughts and feelings, right? And we could do that in any disorder, but for OCD, it'd be the obsessions.
Right.
Like you could use that strategy to not listen to the obsessions.
Because a lot of people, and I know you've heard this too, say, to me, a successful treatment outcome would be I'll never have this thought again, which of course is nothing we're working toward, right?
Right. Yeah. So, but if the person could really get to a place where it is my role to figure out, like a line I use a lot is like, we're going to work together so that you're good at responding when this shows up.
Right.
You know, like what is good? Good is noticing it like, you know, someone in your life that you don't love, but you can practice having them around, or notice it like a crying child, or like whatever the sort of metaphor that clicks for you.
Yeah. How many years did it take to learn all the metaphors?
So this is more of a therapist to therapist answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think once it's kind of like, okay, once you get the model, then you learn how to say the thing to the client that clicks for them, which is like when I was learning how to do cognitive therapy, it took me like 3 months of just like hanging around people. And then finally I'm like, oh, I get what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like now I get it. And now I can just do it whatever way I want. But it like takes a while to sort of like get into that water and like, oh, this is the style. All right, now I see how to respond to each thing.
And new therapists ask me, how do you always come up with, response prevention exercises? Well, you do this for 26 years and it just becomes natural to think that way, right? Yeah.
Yeah. My PhD advisor used to say, it takes 1,000 hours of something to become an expert. And I keep saying that to my grad students, and they're like, how do you write that so fast? Or how do you just say that thing? Well, you do it a lot, and it's just sort of like whatever skill that is, it's just in there.
Yes. And that could be a piano playing skill, and that could be doing a therapy skill, right? That it just takes some time. When you're working with grad students, I'm thinking that's sometimes got to be very difficult, right? Because they'll sometimes feel like, oh my gosh, my advisor is this guy and he's published all these things. And do you ever find that even they're a little nervous to start to do some treatment and knowing that you're going to be watching it and commenting on it or anything?
Well, I have a sort of an anecdote that might be helpful for the listeners. So
please, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I bring in like 1 to 2 new PhD students a year. They work with me for 5 years, and then they go off and they become, your therapists or your professors or your, hopefully, or not hopefully, but, like some work in OCD clinics.
Right.
Like I have one going off to Rogers this year.
Great.
Like they, they go do those things. And when they first get here, I say, you're going to come into my office once a week for the whole first semester. And all I want is you to get used to talking to me. Like I'm going to force you to get used to being in my office, and whatever picture you have of me, I want you to come to find a different picture of me. And then after that semester, now I just want you to FaceTime me or walk up to my office, or like I want you to just naturally do it. So I always think of it kind of like a traditional exposure therapy. Like we're just going to do this enough that you are used to being in my office, and it's not that uncomfortable thing you were used to as an undergrad where the professors, you couldn't have unlimited time.
Right.
In grad school, you have as much time with me as you want. That's our deal.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. But then you said the therapy. I don't think anyone likes having their therapy watched.
No.
I don't even, I don't even like it.
Yeah. How did you get in the field in the first place? What brought you into psychology?
Well, if there's any high school teachers out there, I took a class, and it was called Human Behavior. I was a senior in high school, and that was the first thing I ever found interesting. And if my mom listens to this, she's probably like the most knowledgeable about. I'm a pretty unlikely person to be a professor. Like, I was a pretty good skateboarder, pretty good snowboarder. Not things that were going to get me a good career. And I took that class and was like, oh, this is cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I went to college to study psychology. And yeah, long story short, I worked in some labs and I was like, oh, this is fun. And then really I started working with Doug Woods, and I was like, okay, this is the part of psychology I think I want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
it was a little bit working with people, but it was really more this like developing, testing, disseminating treatments. I was like, oh, this is a really cool, like you know, as a senior in college, I like had a desk in the lab and I would put in 20 hours a week. I was like, this is the fun stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. So just people giving me chances and things clicked.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then that work with Doug, I mean, obviously, Doug is so amazing in the work that he does with BFRB. So it's interesting how you two got to collaborate almost into bringing ACT into that experience, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
uh, obviously it just hadn't been done prior to that. So
Right. Right.
it's a weird question, maybe, but you have really been on the forefront of bringing new techniques, sometimes what people call the third wave, right,
Mm-hmm.
of doing work. Uh, Looking back on that now and seeing it being really more of an established kind of thing, what was it like at the beginning of that, though, when you were testing these things out and trying to bring things to conferences, get things published?
Right.
There's always going to be naysayers who are like, "What the hell are you doing? Shut up!" This
Sure.
is what
Sure.
we do. How did you manage that? Because it's almost a parallel. We're asking people to manage something and do something new in their life as well, and
Right.
they're going to take some steps. It's not going to be comfortable or easy. People might even say you can't handle that. That's why we've been providing you safety behaviors all along. And so
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting story, and I'd love for people to hear about it.
Yeah. So, if you're a listener and you're not a professional who's attending conferences every year, when acceptance and commitment therapy started to come out as sort of a popular therapy within the CBT world, it went through a lot of bumps. We can go back and find like issues of journals that
Mhm.
are contentious. You can find, papers written that are not supportive of it. Um, and that was sort of interesting to watch my advisor, Steve, sort of have to deal with that, like just the whole treatment being brought into a field.
Right.
And I'd sit in the audience and watch these talks and watch them debate, like, the biggest names. And he'd win, he'd lose, he'd make mistakes, he'd do well. But in our lab, like, our goal was always to make the world better. Like, he would, like, so many times at the end of things, he'd say, okay, let's go make a miracle happen.
Sure.
Like, that was this line he'd always say at the end of like lab meetings or supervision time, which was like, go make the world better. Like, go out there and do that. And I think he really believed we were bringing something that is going to improve people's lives. And if you know him, he's still trying to do that in just his
Every day,
different ways
no
he's
doubt.
doing it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so then what I found is ACT as a general thing, people kind of are like, okay, we kind of get what it is. We get where you fit, right? Kind of like in the same way dialectical behavior therapy is just part of our field, like,
Mm-hmm.
just fits in. And I didn't really realize that I'd have to go through what Steve went through in OCD, in trichotillomania,
Sure.
right? And it's going to keep going because, as I've been around, like, I have a student coming in and she's like, my goal is to do body dysmorphic disorder, right? And she has been working for years with some of the best people. She's super talented. And she's going to come here and do body dysmorphic disorder work. And, right, she's going to go through that. Like, there's going to be people who work in that area who are going to say, like, okay, what is this thing?
Yeah.
And here's my first thing I'll say about it. I'm glad people are critical. The
Right.
people who design and disseminate these things, like, we need to be critical of them. We need to evaluate them. We need to test them. We need to figure out where they fit and where they don't. But you do have to kind of keep plugging along, because there's a lot of pushback. And yeah, I think luckily, like, Steve sort of instilled in me this, like, if your value is to make the world better and you are sticking to that, even if someone disagrees, if you're doing it for the right reasons, you can keep doing it, right? So then that's like that value thing, like that motivation stuck around, even though I would run into hard things, and I had to find little skills to navigate things. Like, I had a paper once that was like rejected because I literally had a line in the intro that, like, it went through multiple rounds of revision. The person's like, I still don't like the way you describe CBT, and it was rejected.
Wow.
Even though every other piece, it was like a fight over a sentence.
Yeah.
And it was just something I had to learn how to sort of navigate as I moved my way into the field.
Yeah. And a testament to the scientific principles where, we keep testing, we keep refining, we keep presenting. And when something really is valid, it eventually sticks, right? And it really comes along. So I love the parallel of you going through that to what we're asking people with OCD to do, right? Keep doing your ERP, keep working through these things, challenging this and learning that you can handle it.
Yeah. And there's probably a time piece, which, like in the same way, if you keep doing the work, you'll get there. It's so funny. Like now, like ACT is almost old hat. Like,
yeah, right. ACT. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. It's not the hot thing anymore. So there's like I know the same thing. Like if you do your ERP work and, whatever additional sort of like cognitive or values-based things you want to add in there, if you do that work, I have incredible confidence you will be in a better spot. But how long does that take? I don't know. It could take a bit.
I wish we knew.
In the same way, like if you have a good idea in psychology, you don't just like do a study and everyone's like, oh, we agree, right? You got to do it. Your students got to do it. Other people have to do it. And then as time ticks on, it kind of makes the shift.
So let's talk more specifically about ACT. I mean, this is the Get to Know OCD podcast, and we've talked a ton about ERP, but could you give us a few minute tutorial on the basics of ACT? I know that there's ideas about, thoughts are not necessarily good or bad. And there's lots of great things that it brings into the field, the work of values into this. Mm-hmm. Where does mindfulness come in? I'd love for our audience to really hear that from an expert who's doing ACT. Mm-hmm.
Sure. I think an easy place to start if you're trying to get ACT is like there's two sides. So I would call it like the acceptance and mindfulness side, and the values and behavior change side.
Sure.
And I'm going to give this description that's a general one. I'd give the same one if I was talking about chronic pain. So the sort of acceptance, and I think I said acceptance and mindfulness, which is a fine way to say it. That whole thing is we're helping the client learn a set of skills that when they have a thought or they're having an emotion, that they can notice it for what it is, right? Like a thought are just words in our head. We have words in our head all day long. Mm-hmm. I've had all sorts of ones in the last 30 minutes, right? Like I don't listen to 90% of them, right?
Or say them.
Right. That's right. So if you can realize that like our minds offer us things all day long, and that we have complete choice over which ones we're going to kind of grab onto and listen to. And then the other thing is like knowing that they are just words in our head. Like we don't get to pick what shows up in our head. Like I look at you and I see, like, I had the thought, oh, interesting. It's colder at Patrick's house than where I am, right? Because how you're dressed. Like I didn't get to pick to think that. I just saw something.
Sure.
That's the words that popped up in my head, and I get to choose what to do with that. If you can get that as a life thing, right? It's not just in your OCD. It's not just in your relationships, that we are always going to be having thoughts and emotions. They're not under our control, but that we get to pick which ones to do something with. Then we have a lot of freedom. So then what do? So how do you make choices? You make choices by your values, and values are the things that you care about, that you want to put effort into, that are meaningful to you. And I like to say they're not always fun. Like I care about a ton of stuff that isn't fun. Mm-hmm. And if I can notice what I care about, then it's like, well, while I'm having thoughts and feelings, I can still pick what I want to do based on my values. And then that's the behavioral commitments. So then here are the things that I'm going to do consistent with who I want to be, while recognizing I just am going to have thoughts and feelings all day long. And if you're a listener and you're like, wait, so you just ignore all thoughts and feelings, it's more like you get to choose what to bond with. Mm-hmm. Like if I feel love towards my wife, woohoo, like I can grab onto that, tell her I love her, think about doing something extra nice. But then the neat thing is, even if I feel frustrated with her, well, I can just let that go, connect to my values,
Hmm.
be kind to her, be sweet to her, do something nice for her. So my behaviors are not controlled by what I think or feel, because I don't think we get to pick what we think and feel. Things just happen.
And it's always interesting when people with OCD will come back with that and say, but I don't want to think or feel this, right?
Yeah.
And again, the answer is, well, kind of too bad, right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and that we have a concept in ACT called diffusion, which is a word we made up. It's DE, not DI, and it just means like we fuse with our thoughts, and being defused is seeing a thought as a thought.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you have OCD, maybe it's easier to think about someone else's disorder. If you have someone with PTSD and they can't stop remembering that horrible thing, well, they're not at that horrible event.
Right.
They're just having a picture in their mind of the horrible event. They are, they're thinking about or feeling the things that are tied to the horrible event. And if they could realize that these are just thoughts, these are just emotions, I'm not actually in that event, well, then you don't have to listen to it. But I agree, it shows up big, it shows up powerful.
Yeah.
If you have OCD, I mean, certain obsessions show up pretty big and pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to, diminish.
No.
It is a word in the head, right?
Yeah.
It's not actually in front of you.
Edna Foas once said, and I loved this phrase, she said, PTSD is the fear of a memory.
Yeah.
Which I just thought was fantastic, right? It's like,
yeah,
you're not back in that situation again, but you're acting as if you are based on the memory that you're having of the experience, right?
Right. And an interesting thing about fusion, and like there's a handful of studies that show this, that the more fused you are, the more emotion that will bring, and the more diffused you are, then defuse, the good side, the less emotion that event will bring. Right. So if you can learn how to recognize it as just a thought, then maybe the obsession won't hit you with such punch.
And that's why I get almost every week on my webinar a question along the lines of, why does it have to feel so real?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the same reason like every therapist has a Kleenex box in their room, because we talk about sad things, you feel sad things. You think about harming your child, you will feel some version of what it would feel like to harm your child, right? But that's just like Pavlovian conditioning. It's just
empathy, right? I mean,
the stimulus shows up, and your body gives the emotions that are tied to that. And if you can recognize that doesn't mean you're in the situation, doesn't mean you're going to do the thing, you're just having a thought about, and that thought carries with the emotions.
Building on, I liked your example about your wife, who I know you love. She's lovely, by the way. I've met her. She's very nice. But no doubt you two get frustrated with each other once in a while. Sure. The nature of a relationship.
Right.
Someone with relationship OCD would say, but that makes me doubt my relationship, right? And using these very strong words like that makes me, or I can't deal with that and everything. How would you talk to someone in that situation with some of maybe the ACT metaphors to bring into that discussion as you're trying to help facilitate good ERP for people?
Right. I think if someone brought that to me, I'd say something like, okay, we have our day-to-day thoughts and emotions, but then we have our stable values. Mm-hmm. And so like if we could take the obsessive thoughts about it and we could have an honest conversation, and I know that's hard because they're going to jump in and try to cloud the moment.
Sure. How do I even know my values are stable, Mike? I mean, right? Even that,
right. Yeah. So that's some work to do, but if you could figure out like what you care about and who you want to be on this planet and what you want to do, then we could say, well, what would be the behaviors that are consistent with that?
Yeah.
And so that might be something like if I said with my wife, and I'd say this to a client, I'd say, well, like I want to spend time with her in the morning. I want to spend time with her in the evening. I want to do some special things. I want to be helpful. I want to be supportive. And in the behavioral commitment realm, I could say, this is what that would look like. And then and then like we could put that down, and then I'd say, and what do my thoughts and feelings tell me I either need to not do or do in addition? And that's a category that we would call, you know, sticky thoughts, thoughts we don't need to listen to, the opposing fans at a sporting event. These are just things being yelled at me, and it's my job to learn how to not listen to them. And what I need to do is focus on my values and who I want to be in the moment, even though there's all this noise over here. And then someone might say, well, it's really hard to not listen to that noise. And then I'd say, well, we could find all sorts of examples of people who are really good at not listening to noise, like athletes, politicians, actors, anyone who's, probably us right now, right?
Mhm.
There's some awareness that, oh, this will be out there and people will. And when we have that thought, we don't try to discount it or tell ourselves it'll be fine. Like we just sort of, like we don't even engage with it. And how do we do that? Practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
And you do that enough, it gets easy. Like, okay, this is a category I don't listen to, and this is a category I do listen to. So my kindness towards my wife is not dependent on thoughts or feelings.
I have tinnitus, so I tell people
Yeah.
I'm always hearing a sound.
That's right.
24/7. I am hearing a noise that
Yeah.
nobody else in the world is hearing but
Yep.
me.
Yep.
And I've had to adjust to that over the last 2 decades of having it.
Okay. Yeah.
Of just allowing that to be there and still going on and doing this. But there's no way
Right.
I could do this interview with you if I was so focused on that. Mike, we'll continue talking in a moment, but first I have to make the sound go away because it's never going to go away. It is there forever, right?
Yes. And my guess is that you have found some way to like, it's not like you're okay with it. It's not.
No, I hate
like it. But you found some place to like carry this crying child along.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Correct is correct and right. You say just correct. There we go.
Interestingly, we I was just at a meeting 2 weeks ago, and I'm in a big, kind of hospital-like building. We're starting a sound sensitivities clinic, which is Tonitis, hyperacusis, and misophonia, and you can guess what type of intervention we're doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sounds terrible.
Well, it has a team. No, there's a team of people.
It's for me, the worst is whenever there's a movie where there's an explosion, they always have the silence. And then the first thing you hear is that high-pitched noise.
Yeah.
That is so close, but not quite my tinnitus. So now then I get this weird chord going on in my head when that happens. And I just cover my ears for a moment because it's really uncomfortable, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you and I get it. And yeah, that's a lot to carry along, and life would be easier if you didn't have to carry it along.
Yeah.
But we haven't quite figured out the move to shut it off.
Right. So I let people that I work know that, they're like, how have you ever done this before? I say, I do it every day because I've learned to live with this. I don't hear a thought. I don't have an image. I don't have an urge. I have a sound.
Yeah.
And that's part of it.
Yeah.
What are some of the most popular metaphors? I think a lot of people are familiar, and I've always loved leaves on a stream is a great one. One of my favorite ones, I remember kids loved this one. I would have them write down some of their thoughts that they didn't like on a piece of paper, and I would crumple them up, and I'd say, okay, do all you can to dodge them. And I'd toss them at them, and they'd be like this and this. And once in a while, one would hit him. I say, oh, that one hit you. And it just bounced off. Did it hurt you in any way? So those were always fun for me. But, what are some of your favorites that you go to?
So when I'm doing therapy and I am stuck, like, I don't know how to explain this. There's one called Passengers on the Bus. And if you want to Google it, there's a really cute choose your own adventure Passengers on the Bus.
Oh, cool.
So if you're a therapist, you can also, it's a cool like little like thing you can show, and you and the client can kind of enjoy going through it, especially younger people. And I'll just give the quick version of it. It's like if you're driving a bus, on the front of the bus is where you want to go. And I might say that's your value. So it's like, I want to go to work. I want to do this podcast, and then I'm going to get some work done on a different project. That's what's on the front. And then, like anything, as you're driving, the passengers are all your thoughts and feelings that yell other things, right? So for me at work, that would be, well, like, why don't you browse on the internet, and why don't you go for a walk, and why don't you go downstairs and buy some food, and right, it's just like there's all these thoughts about, these other things. So I have options, like I can pull the bus over and try to kick the people off. I can, fight with them while I'm trying to drive, or I can literally do what they say, which is another one. But then the issue there is I'm not driving the bus. Now I'm downstairs buying snacks and, looking at Facebook, and like I'm not getting my work done. So the more active move is like, I know I want to drive, and I come to appreciate, like, I'm going to have a noisy bus. Like, I'm going to drive and they're going to yell at me. They're going to tell me I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm doing it wrong. What's the point? Like, that's one for me, that what's the point? I'm like, I have 1 hour left. What am I, and I write like books, right? Like what percent are you going to get done in an hour? Right. And so like, I'll grab that thought, like, yeah, what is the point? I should just go do something else. Yeah. And I don't need to renegotiate. It's more like, no, you made a behavioral commitment. You're going to work a work day and then you're going to go home. So then I just like work my work day. And I think part of what happens there is when you do that a lot, it's not hard. I mean, it's like, let me rephrase that, probably less hard. You just get good at how, it's not like I'm now motivated. I'm just like better at not listening to that chatter.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that it really reinforces, again, what we're really trying to get across in treatment, that our goal of therapy isn't to not have a thought.
Right.
And that you can handle whatever pops in your head. I sometimes use the example, I could present something to two people in a room. One will start to do compulsions. The other will write it down and make a screenplay out of it, publish it as a horror film, and make millions of dollars.
Oh, right.
There's multiple ways to react to a thought or an urge or an image. And some people take the compulsion route because OCD might say that's absolutely unacceptable. And someone else might say, that's really creative. I'm gonna do something with that, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I have on this note. So I have a colleague here, Tim Shahan. That's kind of unimportant, but he researches, can you unlearn? Like, and he's good at it.
Great. Oh, yes. I'm glad you brought this up. Actually.
Yeah, he highly funded, and he, a behavior analyst, worked with the best behavior analysts. He runs, non-human labs and a human lab. And I've been in his office, and I'm like, from what you can tell, could I ever help my client not have a memory that they have? And he's like, yeah, I've been at this for a long time, and I cannot figure out any context when something I have trained one of my rats or one of my humans that that will not come back. He's like, I can show you all the different scenarios under which that thing will come back. And so the metaphor I use with my clients is, I was like, most of us have a childhood phone number, like now we have our cell phone, but there was a point you probably had your parents' phone number.
Yep. Still know it.
And that's it, right? When was the last time you needed that, right? Unless it's like a password or something. Like, we don't need that thing, but you can't undo it. Like, you may struggle to remember it, but then it'll come back to you if you like touch a phone. Or so the same thing, even if you like, I'll say this to my clients, like, even if you got to the place where your obsession isn't there for a couple days or a week, all it takes is the right stimulus and it'll come back. I mean, another story, like my older brother smoked. I'm from Wisconsin, where you are. Smoking was pretty common. And, I always liked riding around in his car because it felt cool as a kid to be in his car. He's 4 years older than me. But it always kind of smelled like old cigarettes. And so even now at 47, if I smell kind of like cigarette smoke, I have this little feeling of nostalgia of like hanging out with my cool brother. What is that? Like, I've been out of that state for like 25 years. It's just conditioning.
Yeah.
You'll be over your struggle, and then the right sound, the right smell, the right whatever, and you'll have that thought again. That my argument would be that doesn't mean anything. It's just conditioning.
Mr. Zielinski taught us the B verbs freshman year of high school, which are is, am, was, were, are, be, being, been, seem, look, taste, smell, sound, grow, remain, and appear. Something I might have fudged the last one there, but and then Mrs. Kuzma in 8th grade had us memorize the prepositions, which are about, above, across, after, against, among, around, at, before, behind, beside, between, beyond, but, by, down, during, except for, from, in, into, near, of, off, on, over, pass through, throughout, to, toward, under, until, up, with.
Wow.
Those are the prepositions.
Wow.
Yeah. Still remember that from 8th grade.
Right. And if I offered you a brand new car to forget them, right?
I couldn't.
It's not possible. Yeah.
I could not do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But then our clients are in our offices and they're like, all I want is to like not think this, not have this.
Mhm.
Right. And there's this like part where we just understand, well, it's not how learning works. Like once it's in, but we can get good at not responding to it. Like there is a hope, but it's not get rid of it. It's learn how to treat it for what it is.
There's a lot of hope that we want to instill in people that we're working with. And I talk about, from the ERP side, the hope is you start living the life that you want to live and not the life that OCD wants you to live.
Yeah.
What do you think ACT adds to that hope that we're trying to accomplish for the people who have OCD?
That I do have kind of an interesting answer to that. So I'll go to professional conferences, and one of the questions that I speak about at times is, what is ACT for OCD or for anxiety disorders? And I think part of answering that question is like, what is the goal? Like, how do you know you helped someone? And the answer I usually give is that they can live the life that they want to live.
Yeah.
And in that, the goal is that they won't have these thoughts, they won't have these feelings. The goal is that they can be the kind of person that they want to be day after day. So being a healthy, successful human being, whatever that is to you, right? You can learn how to do that with whatever thoughts you have, with whatever feelings you have, with whatever bodily sensations you have. Like if you have someone with chronic pain or tinnitus, we don't have to strip that out until you can go live a meaningful life. Right. Therapy's always been about how do we help you live a meaningful life with what you have.
Right.
So if you're more prone to having disgusting thoughts or feelings of anxiety, our hope is that we can help you find a way to not get like bulldozed by that and carry it with you when it shows up and be the kind of person you want to be, whether it's there or not. So I don't know what the exact question was at the beginning, but the goal of ACT is to help people live the life they want to live. And I would say it's with whatever shows up for you.
Yeah, I like that. So ACT becomes a great augmenter for ERP. Would you say ACT is a treatment for OCD, or ACT is an augmentation, an addition upon ERP work? How do you kind of come with that?
The answer is it's super complicated. So
good, we have plenty of time.
Yeah. And I think the issue is, if we even just went and found 10 talented OCD therapists and we said, what is ERP? We're not all going to give the same answer. So I often write, like I'll say exposure exercises or something. Mm-hmm. And to me, exposure exercises or ERP are an opportunity to go practice with the difficult stimuli. Mm-hmm. And then the response prevention part is how to practice acceptance and noticing and being present. So it's kind of like if ERP is a behavioral principle and ACT is a form of cognitive behavior therapy, like it can kind of meld together into a nice thing. Like I don't think I could do ACT without practicing my things.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense.
So even if I have a client with depression, we are going to literally practice going out and interacting with the world and going to class and talking to friends and going to bed early and eating our meals. Like I want to do the work in the real life. ERP has some like really nice ideas and strategies of, well, how would we practice that in session?
Yeah.
I can say some of the things that ACT tweaks is the exposure exercises are pretty much values-based. Mm-hmm. Like there's usually a link to why this makes sense in your life. Weirdly, and there's probably an article to be written, I don't do imaginal work, because what imaginal work to me is, it's like there's some stimuli you need to practice with that we can't get to. And I'm always like, well, I can find something that you really care about that we can get to, and we have just as fine outcomes. And I don't have to go to interact with something that isn't sort of values based to you.
Sure.
Now, if you needed to do an imaginal because that's the only way you could interact with this values based thing, okay, we could do it. But again, I haven't done an imaginal exposure since internship, and that was 20 years ago. Yeah, so the exposure practice are values based. We practice being practice like seeing our thoughts for what they are, making room for them, connecting to what we care about. Yeah, they're sort of seen as an opportunity to practice. You know, and an interesting thing is, like, I don't know if any of your therapists use SUDS. Like we're not tracking that because I don't really. It's not about how high or low things are inside. It's about how good you are at interacting with what you have. And a funny thing about acceptance, and there's multiple studies I could show you, the more accepting you are, the actually less reactive you are. So if you're doing acceptance well, you might not get a high SUD score, which then kind of messes the whole thing up a little bit.
Yeah. Before we get to the end here, you know, your work in this has been tremendous, your publications. What have you taken in your career so far and thought, you know, these are a couple of things I'm really proud of that we've done, or this is how I feel that we've really helped to advance the field?
I think from when I started working in OCD until now, that there are a handful of lines of research and people who have helped bring in this idea of acceptance and tolerance, seeing thoughts for thoughts, allowing it to be there as actually a goal of the work, and that what happens to the intensity of the internal experience is, I wouldn't even say secondary or third. I say it's like pretty far down the row. And I think when I started in like 2000, the idea that habituation and seeing less of an internal reaction is a core, like within session habituation, between session habituation, that has just become less core. And I think that's pretty cool, because I think ACT offered a lot at sort of the clinical end, and then I think Michelle Krask's work offered a lot in sort of the experimental end. And this has become a way of talking. And maybe if there's a part that I'm proudest about, it's that there's a lot of people who are part of this. And, you know, like, I think part of the joy of being a research professor is like, I don't know. I was never about like claiming an idea, or like it never crossed my mind. It just was neat, like how many people got involved in this kind of work, and that like a lot of people worked in it, and then it moved to that place. And then when those of us who were interested in that way of thinking met each other, like we collaborated and did projects together. And it's that's been neat. It's been neat to be part of like a big group of people who kind of looked at it from a slightly different way, and that like the field sort of incorporated it and accepted it, and it's just there as part of the field.
Yes. From humble beginnings at an ABCT conference.
From confused beginnings. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate our friendship very much. And
no, you too.
Thank you for the work you've done and what you've done to try to help the OCD community and make sure that, again, they do start to live those lives that they want and learn that they can handle whatever it is that pops into their head without having to do something to try to make it go away.
Well, thank you. And I was, this is not me, you know, being a brown nose. I told you before, I was out on a bike ride this morning, and I was thinking about like you and podcasts and things like this. And, you know, thanks for doing this kind of work and all the work you do. Like, I can say, as somebody who's been in this field for a long time, the work you do is kind of the same. Like you have put moving the field forward, helping the people with the problem first, and then there's been all these sort of cool outcomes after that. But, you know, all the different jobs you've worked in, the position you're in now, and doing a podcast like this, like I know where the motivation comes from. And yeah, you too, you've moved things forward in a great way. So it's been cool doing it with you.
Thanks. And we'll see you at a conference very soon.
Yeah, see you very soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike, and thank all of you again for watching another episode of the Get to Know OCD podcast. If you're looking for help for OCD or related conditions, you can check us out at nocd.com. That's NOCD.com. We'll have other episodes coming soon, and if you like what you've seen, subscribe to our NoCD YouTube channel to stay up to date with everything we're doing. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.